Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Antonique Edwards, and I am the Chief of Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement for Alachua County Public Schools. As I often say, it is a pleasure to be here with the Parent Academy. We are excited this year to kick off with some webinars to support our parents throughout the district. And we've had several topics which we have been sharing with families, and tonight is no different. Another important topic to be discussed and to be covered to really support those in the community and our students who are within our school system is internet safety. And so we have a special guest on this evening. It is Detective Sergeant Chris King. He is from the City of Gainesville's Police Department. And we are going to have him share tonight about all the various aspects of internet safety that are important for you to know as we support your children, but also for you. And so, Sergeant King, I will give it over to you at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. So my camera looks like super close, so I'm sorry if it's that awkward. I might actually shut it off once we start the presentation here. Full disclaimer, I'm not a Zoom presentation fan. I actually like doing presentations in person where I can actually connect with people, kind of break through any of my nervousness. A lot easier than behind this square here. So I will also apologize. It's been a long day, so if everyone could bear with me. And how many people do we have? Just 7 right now, including us. Is that correct? Okay. Well, I want to thank those that are in attendance because I'm sure you've had long days as well. A couple of other things that I wanted to talk about before I begin. So I do need, and I talked with Dr. Edwards about this, I do, even though you guys are limited in number, I do want some interaction if we can. So if you guys have questions, if I'm asking for input, like who are you as far as a parent, a caretaker, or a teacher, or what grade level your child might be in, if you can just add that to the chat notes, and Dr. Edwards agreed, hopefully, fingers crossed, to help me out with this. And it'll just give me a little bit of insight as far as who I am actually speaking with this evening.
I am happy to help you with that. And if I could just for an additional housekeeping portion for those of you who are viewing on tonight, at the end of each of our segments, in case you haven't joined previously, we give you an opportunity to ask questions, and we ask that you would put those in the chat. But if you can, do as Detective King or Sergeant King has shared on today, and just share whatever you need in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to support.
Perfect. And then again, she said, Detective or Sergeant King, I'm completely fine with Chris, so no worries about that. Again, I'm excited to be able to present to you guys today. It's actually my first opportunity for the entire county to be able to present, so hopefully a couple more people will be able to enter the presentation today. So if we go over to the presenter mode, if I can share my screen.
You should be able to now.
I should be able to now. Let me see here. Share screen. I'm going to this here. Share.
Yes.
Okay. Everything looking all right?
Yes, looks great.
Okay. All right. So this is our presentation today. This presentation is made for parents, guardians, and anyone in the actual community. I know Dr. Edwards reached out and she said something to the effect of middle school age child. Would this be appropriate? I do feel like it's appropriate. Yes, full disclaimer, we're going to mention the word sex, child exploitation, but I have to imagine middle school and plus has encountered that those statements, that topic before, so I don't think it's going to be news to them. So full disclaimer about that. But I fully believe that this presentation will be appropriate for really anything middle school and above as far as the presentation is concerned. All right, so who am I and what am I, what do I actually do? Interesting question. I've been with the department going on 14 years now. About 10 of those years I've worked in investigations. For about 8.5 of those years I've worked on child abuse and sex crime investigations. And I was able to promote from officer to corporal to sergeant, all while investigations, which is pretty unique. And I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to do that. I know a lot of people often say, like, why would you ever want to work those crimes? You know, that takes a lot. Don't you ever want to do something different? Yes, and yes is the answer. It does take a lot. I am often stressed. I often see the worst side of the world, but I also feel like, especially when I was a detective, that this is the best position I could be in to benefit the city of Gainesville and the citizens around me. And I feel like that's the same sentiment of a lot of our investigators here. So just please keep that in mind. But yeah, that's why I'm still in investigations. That's why I'm also now the supervisor over the Internet Crimes Against Children, the ICAC unit, as I'll use the acronym ICAC. I'm the sergeant over that unit, where we have local investigators here, but I'm also considered the North Florida ICAC commander. And what that is it's a position where Gainesville Police Department is the host or the hub for a DOJ grant. So I actually manage the grant. I have a lot of clerical and admin duties, in addition to supervising a staff here that investigates crimes. But part of those administrative duties and being the North Florida ICAC commander is I provide funding for training and equipment to investigators in North Florida who work on internet crimes against children. All right, so before we actually begin the presentation, I'm asking everyone to kind of put aside any judgments and what they think they actually know and what they think they actually believe, how their kids interact in the actual digital world. So just put all your judgment aside. Let me get through this presentation. You have questions, like Dr. Edwards said, we'll address them at the end. I don't want you to get stuck on certain things that I'm saying and just sort of discarded absolutely everything that I'm saying. It's a lengthy presentation, as I talked to Dr. Edwards before we began. I try to trim this down every time I go through it, but the more times I do it, I just realize that every slide has a lot of importance. So just again, like I said earlier, just bear with me here. I am also asking that we have an open and honest conversation with ourselves as we go through these slides. Whether we want to accept or believe it, how we interact in the digital landscape shapes and guides our children and how they will interact in the digital landscape. And for example, if you're online and you're on Facebook or something else and you're sharing what might be a hateful article, or you're posting negatively about someone and sharing your own opinion, even if it's valid to you, you have to understand that your kids, when they see that, that's likely going to be how they shape and mold their decisions and how they're going to interact in the digital landscape. And that's very important when we get to the topic of cyberbullying later on. We also tend to believe that the physical world puts our children at a greater risk for harm. And I had this conversation with my wife just the other day. We often think that it's the physical world, it's walking down the street that puts them at a greater harm, in harm's way, greater than the online world. But in reality, it's the digital world which puts them at greater risk today. And today I'll be talking exactly about those risks that they're likely to, unfortunately, encounter. I said it earlier, Dr. Edwards said no, so I'll say this may run a bit over 45 minutes, but I ask that everyone stick around. These topics are important and involve the safety of our children, who are the most important in my eyes. Additionally, at the end, I'll share some helpful links and resources and a few films. This presentation is brought to you by NetSmarts. NetSmarts is offered to you by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's who I work with on a daily basis. NCMEC is the acronym, as part of the ICAC task force. All right, so throughout this presentation, we're going to talk about ways you can protect your children online, and basically what that means is however they access the internet. I'm sorry, I'm stopping here. There's a pipe issue in the bathroom on the other side of my office, and apparently it's being worked on right now. So we know kids go online, but how are they going online? We see computers, cell phones, game consoles, e-readers, tablets. Technology changes all the time, and kids are constantly finding the newest websites, apps, gadgets, and it's ultimately up to us to teach them the basic rules of internet safety so they can use all of these devices, or any of the devices I didn't include here today, responsibly. So what are your children doing online? For those that are in attendance, if you could just put in the chat box what your kids are actually doing online. And maybe Dr. Edwards, you can give us some feedback, please. Anything yet?
I don't have anything yet.
Okay.
maybe clarifying when you say online, what do you
Yeah,
mean?
online. So we talk about, and we'll encounter social media apps like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Kick, Snapchat. Some kids are going online playing video games where they're connecting socially while they're actually playing video games, like on Xbox or PlayStation. Kids are watching videos on YouTube streams, playing Minecraft. Maybe
Okay,
they're going online to access
they're
their home.
playing games.
Playing games. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. All right. So I'll touch on the video games aspect a little bit later. We're not going to go through every website or app that your children have access to or might be using. There's plenty of information available online that's at your fingertips if you're looking for specific things or specific things to worry about. I'm going to give you a list of some things at the end of this that'll be useful for you, but I wouldn't get, again, I'm just not going to be able to go over absolutely everything that's out there on the internet. I'm going to give a broad interview. Go ahead.
Chris, they're starting to come in a little. So
Okay.
a couple of people said watching YouTube, sometimes watching YouTube,
Mhm.
Roblox.
Yep.
etc. Mhm.
Okay. These are important. And when I talk about child exploitation later, unfortunately, I'm going to have to mention some of the tips that we get in, and I'll touch on that.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you for your feedback, guys. All right, so if there's one point you could walk away from this entire presentation with today, the most important thing that you could do is to communicate with your children about what they're doing online and start the conversation about asking what they're actually interested in. So we know a couple of parents already know that their kids are interested in playing video games, but it's really important to communicate with them as much as possible about what else they're doing in a friendly manner, not in an inquisitive, I'm a parent only manner, because you want to try to connect with your kids as best as you can to gain their trust when you learn about what they're doing online. Can anyone tell me the definition of digital citizenship? Or you know what, I'm going to put you on the spot, Dr. Edwards. Can you tell me the definition of digital citizenship? And you don't have time to Google search it.
I don't.
No.
I don't know, being part of a digital community, an online community.
Yeah, partially true. So the other half of that, and this is according to the applied educational systems, digital citizenship refers to the responsible use of technology by anyone who uses computers, the internet, digital devices to engage with society on any level. So video games, sharing a post, exchanging information via email, whatever it may be. That is kind of the newer term being used, digital citizenship. Because it takes it away from the physical world and puts it into the digital world. Using the internet safely and responsibly, an emphasis on responsibly, is now more important because it's in our lives in some way more than it has ever been. And you've seen that in school over the last couple of years with COVID and how we've had to go virtual. So now our kids went from being online a certain percentage of their day to an even greater percentage. So discuss with your children regularly what they're doing online and what their interests are, but have an open mind as well. Kids need to know that you won't freak out and stop them from simply going online if something negative does happen. You may not be able to protect them from everything, but you can teach them, and I want to reiterate this, you can teach them how to make responsible choices when they encounter a problem. And that's part of the second half of that. The number one takeaway is communicate with them. And the goal is so they can make responsible choices, even if they encounter something negatively. Safety and security issues. We're going to talk about inappropriate content, online privacy, sexting, online enticements, and cyberbullying. So I don't know if I skipped over it or not. Let me see here. All right. This chart basically just breaks down how you actually speak to your children. The younger children are probably going to be simply your elementary school children. They're calling it netiquette, when in reality, they're really talking about the issue of cyberbullying when it comes to middle and high school kids. Middle school and high school kids, yes, we're going to mention it and we're going to talk about it in the form of sexting. Whereas younger kids, it's looking at inappropriate content. I will share with you that we do, and even in this county, we've seen kids as young as elementary school age that are sexting each other and sending nude photographs. So it really depends on your child. It really depends on their age, and we'll say what you believe their interactions are. Obviously, it's inappropriate across the board, but if we're having these conversations earlier and sooner, maybe we can get to these, maybe we can avoid sexting and leave that for middle school and high school if we know that it's just inappropriate content that they're avoiding at a young age. All right, so let's discuss the inappropriate things your child may encounter online. The internet opens it up to an entire world of possibilities, but we know what's out there. It's pornography, it's excessive violence, it's hate speech. I talked about that earlier a little bit. It's risky or illegal behaviors. And I want to highlight briefly pornography. Recently, I watched a fantastic documentary, which I'll highlight at the end of this presentation here. But I watched this documentary and they gave two specific stats. One, that at least 1/4 of kids between the ages of 13 to 16 have seen pornography and were actively seeking it out. The other stat of a similar percentage included the age range, but it was 8 to 16-year-olds. So about 1/4 of kids, give or take on that stat, were actively seeking out pornography were between the ages of 8 and 16. And then another stat was that 27% of all the video content on the unfiltered internet was pornographic. So that means 1/4 of the videos that were online, basically, that people had access to were pornography. It's a very large amount that's readily available for anyone at any given time. And pornography is at our children's fingertips. They're learning about sex and they are formulating and shaping their ideas, views, actions, and expectations regarding sex and intimacy from pornography. And I must restate this, pornography is becoming their model for intimacy and sex. And this obviously is not healthy. And this isn't a call against or a statement against pornography. This is just the reality of what is unfortunately occurring. I'm not going to get into it too much, but in my daily job, I assign tips that come in and we investigate people that are exchanging child sexual abuse material online. And we're seeing where the age of some of these offenders was much older. We're seeing the age trickle down to a lot younger folks nowadays. We'll see reports where 18 and 19-year-olds are trading prepubescent child sexual abuse material, where it used to be much older folks. And we think that there's some sort of, and I might be redundant here later on in the presentation, we think that these kids are just unfortunately being exposed to this at such a young age now that they're becoming desensitized to it. So by the time they're seeing such horrible images as you and I might consider horrible, it's not that big of a deal to them, which is just very, very unfortunate. All right, so how do we respond if they're seeing something inappropriate? So in general, it could have some negative effects on children. Some kids, especially younger children, may feel guilty. They might feel ashamed. Some children exposed to violent or sexual content may become, as I said, desensitized to it. And this can affect their self-image and overall development. Let your kids, and this is the important thing, know that they can always talk to you no matter what. The internet is a great tool for them, so don't make it scary. And if your child does open up to you about inappropriate content that they've seen, listen attentively and stay calm. Reassure them that it's not their fault and help them report anything they may feel them uncomfortable. And if you believe they received inappropriate content from a friend or that they might have shared it to someone else, you may want to talk to a teacher, school counselor, or your local law enforcement. Again, the goal is to have regular and active conversations so that the conversation is open and ongoing, not just reacting to a negative situation only then once it occurs. What they should do. So your elementary, your middle school age kid stumbles upon something, or even your high school kid, it's pretty basic. Turn off the screen, use the back button, back out of that website, have them come to you and tell them what they found. They can report it if it's negative content on a social media app such as Snapchat or Facebook. There's ways that they can report content as they see it. And usually those accounts, if it's deemed illegal or if it's deemed inappropriate, can get shut down. And then the other thing here that you'll see, and I'll give you this at the end, is they can report it to the cyber tip line at cybertipline.org. And you as well as a parent can have access to that reporting as well. So in addition to your talking to your children about what to do if they see inappropriate content, it's also important that you talk to your children and older children about not posting it themselves. Inappropriate information your child shouldn't share online includes all the following that we see here: inappropriate or illegal behavior, offensive language, threats of violence, underage drinking, drug use, hate speech. And unfortunately, we see a lot of that online nowadays. But I don't think that there's a lot of thought and mindset going into the future outcome of posting these things. It's all in that moment, and they're not worried about their reputation at school in the future, in the workplace or amongst friends. They're not worried if they could get punished at school, if it breaks school rules, or even college, if it goes against them when they're applying for college later on. Just looking at my notes here. Again, hurts their chances of getting into college. And then also they could be charged with certain crimes if they are actually breaking the law. Recently, what we've seen even in our local school district is some kids see some of these child sexual abuse videos that I've talked about, unfortunately, and some of them they think are jokes, and they're done from the position of like a viral joke meme. And believe it or not, some of them come in labeled as viral because they've been sent out amongst kids and even adults so often and frequent that Facebook is labeling them as viral. But they think it's funny, and they think it's a joke, and that they couldn't get in trouble just because it's a viral thing. But in reality, they could get in trouble still. So what you can do: set some ground rules, establish clear guidelines, what sites they should be able to visit, what sites they can't visit, have blackout periods where they're not online. And this is where we're having an open conversation with ourselves as well. I know, and I've shared this conversation with my wife, myself, and she's had the same conversation with me about having times where we're actually putting down our phones. We're not going online. We're disconnecting. We're having our blackout period as well. So set some ground rules with your kids. Research before you buy something. Know what the device is, especially when it comes to younger kids. Go beyond safeguards. There are safeguards that you can have. I'll caution you against them, and I'll offer you a website at the end that has them. A list of what some of these these softwares and their monitoring abilities are. But I caution you, the kids are smart. They're much more savvy when it comes to technology than we are. And if they're not somehow getting into the device or changing the settings without you knowing, I just heard a story the other day where someone got into the parent's phone when the parent didn't know and changed the device and settings. So it wasn't from their own phone. It was from the parent's phone that they changed it. Again, what can you do? We're going to connect. We're going to learn. That's you learning what the platforms are, you being proactive and checking in with your kids and learning what they're actually doing, as if you're actually, and you should be, interested in what your kids are doing online. So if it's video games, we're sitting down and we're playing video games with our kids for 5 minutes, or seeing what they're creating within that the sandbox, as they call it in games like Roblox. And then engage. Like I said, that's actually part of the learning part, where I'm saying sit down and talk with your kids or watch them while they're playing these games. Talk about it. Your kids might not tell you absolutely everything, but ask anyway. Regular conversations are key to keeping your kids safe. Get involved and don't pull the plug. Taking away the internet access because they may have made a mistake online doesn't solve the problem. They're going to find ways to access the internet somehow or another. And ultimately, it's about protecting them and making sure that they can move forward and make the right decisions. Simply pulling that device out from under them and giving them zero access is not going to set them up to continue making better decisions in the future. Online privacy, what's okay, not okay. I'm going to scan through this real quick. Obviously, what's okay, pictures of family and friends. What's not okay, some of your real intricate personal information. You might not want to put your phone number obviously out there. You're not going to want to put your home address out there. You shouldn't be sharing conversations, private conversations with other people online. This one's kind of self-explanatory. Sending, viewing, sharing explicit or provocative pictures. I can't harp on that one enough. Or resharing, especially the resharing. Someone sent me a provocative picture, but I'm showing a friend. I didn't really do it. I didn't take the photograph. We still should not be resharing these images. Again, I'll scan through this one pretty quickly. Personal information, obviously, you don't want to share your passwords, your home address, your location, your phone numbers, as I said. I want to jump back to the password one real quick. especially with teens. What we often see is, unfortunately, they do take nude photographs, and what they'll often do is we'll say they took them on Snapchat, but then they share their Snapchat password with one of their friends, and then their friend and them get into a spat, and then they go and they access it and they send it out. We see this quite often. So as much as they have best friends, we encourage them to have friends that they can trust. They still shouldn't be sharing these passwords. Obviously, the risks of sharing your personal information, we know as adults that you're at risk for online scams and identity theft, which is prevalent everywhere, but especially in this country. And then I want to jump down to online enticement and sextortion. So just this week, and I guess I'm reading from something that I wrote up this week, but it's legitimate. Just this week, we received a report in North Florida where a 14-year-old female was commuting with an unknown suspect online, and the suspect attempted to entice the child victim to produce and send nude images of themselves to the suspect. The suspect even told the child victim that he knew her location and he was going to kill her and her family if the child victim didn't send nude images of themselves. So they ended up sending the nude images, and then even after that, the child victim also ended up having to provide a family member's credit card because the suspect was demanding money in addition to the images. So I didn't read the report in entirety, but I'm going to guess that there was some information that led her to believe that she could have been identifiable as far as her location online. And this suspect used that against her and sextorted her for images and money in this event. And that just happened this week. And I spoke with the child's grandmother, reading my notes here again, who told me the new girl, unfortunately, did send the nude images. And I don't know if I touched on that when I was just reviewing it a second ago. So again, the risks are out there, and the risks for a reason, because people are taking advantage of these criminals. And it's working, and unfortunately, it's working at a pretty high rate. So here's what we can do to help your kids from revealing too much information online. Establish rules about what they can share and under what circumstances. Example, it's okay for them to enter their address online if they're ordering something on Amazon with your permission, but it's not okay for them to enter their address when a pop-up comes on the screen and offers them some prize of some sort. Learn about the reporting options on any of the websites or the games that they're actually using. Each website and game will have its own tools on how to report one of the accounts if it's inappropriate activity, as I talked about earlier. And then also, if any of the passwords are stolen, they can report those accounts as well. Get to know what to do if there is an actual problem, so you can jump on top of it and take advantage of that. Check the privacy settings. You should know that and some of your kids do know this, and you should help them set up their accounts and check their privacy settings often to make sure that they're using the settings. And then you as the user, I encourage you to jump online often to make sure that the privacy settings didn't change just naturally. Sometimes these software companies or these apps, they update their privacy settings, and what was once something that wasn't out there is now out there. So it's incumbent upon you as an adult, but also as helping educate your kids and make sure that they're safe, that you're staying on top of these privacy settings. Specifically, Facebook's Family Safety Center, which is at facebook.com/safety, is an excellent resource for parents who have questions about protecting their children's privacy online. Other sites and apps that are popular with teens, like Twitter and Instagram, they all have something very similar. In addition to being careful about the kind of information that they're posting, you want to make sure that your children are being careful about the images that they're sharing. Sexting is when teens, as we know, send or post nude or partially nude images, usually done via a cell phone. It's really hard to know for sure, and the research varies widely. I see these numbers here: 15% of teens have, 27 say that they have received. I honestly, at this point in time, I feel like that number is a bit low, and I feel like it's a larger number. So why are they sexting? Why is it so prevalent nowadays? Unfortunately, now it's almost like it's a normal adolescent development, part of normal adolescent development, which includes this type of risk-taking behavior. For you or I, 25 plus years ago or so, at 38, it didn't involve this kind of behavior. This wasn't an option for us, but there was other risk-taking behavior that we did engage or we were exposed to. So you have to be somewhat understanding when it comes down to this aspect. This wasn't available for us to do for most parents, I should say. Some of you, it may have been, but we all engage in some type of risk-taking behavior at some point. This is just part of that process now that they might be exposed to, but it's up to us to have this conversation early and then often, so we can kind of discourage this from all the pressures that they're getting about it. One study found that teens who engage in sexting are more likely to be engaged in other risky sexual behaviors, including unprotected sex. Just unfortunate reality of sometimes what we're looking at. Consequences of sexting. Humiliation, bullying, blackmail, school discipline, police involvement. A lot of kids don't think it's illegal. And yes, the state statute is written in a way where it's not illegal just because of the first offense. But it can become illegal after a number of offenses. Usually it's handled administratively at the schools, but in certain circumstances, it might not be. I don't know if any of you are familiar, Dr. Edwards, are you familiar with Amanda Todd and her story? Okay. I believe the circumstance happened probably about right around 2012, 2013, young girl out of Canada who took some nude photographs. They ended up for her then boyfriend, middle school age, I believe, and we'll cut to the chase pretty quickly. She ended up being sextorted for the photographs online. There were threats about, and I think the photographs were shared at her school. She ended up transferring a number of schools before she ultimately ended up taking her own life. And just prior to taking her own life, she had posted a video that went viral on YouTube about the things that she was going through. And she did it in a series where she was showing flashcards about how she was feeling. I can remember back in 2012 or so when I first heard about this story, and I had my own thoughts and reservations. And I'll be frank with you, they weren't very positive and kind of supportive of the whole situation. And what was recently being told to me is cyberbullying. I'm like, it's online, it's not that big of a deal, and we'll talk about it more later. But I can tell you that I had the opportunity to listen to Amanda Todd's mother talk about the incident several years ago at a conference, and it's truly heartbreaking. And I don't want anyone to look at cyberbullying like it's not a real thing and it doesn't have any impact. That the humiliation and the shame that comes from the consequences of sexting, that they don't have an impact, they do. And I think that you guys could probably understand that, but I think the children should understand that too. And if it's age appropriate for them, I would encourage them to watch that video as well, because I'm sure if Amanda Todd could take back time and she could be of age where she had not participated in that risk-taking behavior, she probably wouldn't have done it either. So addressing sexting. Here are some things that you can do to address sexting with your child. Talk to them about the consequences, like I just mentioned. They may not realize that they can get in trouble at home or in school or with the police. Tell them never, never to forward a sexting image. Discuss healthy sexual relationships. Be open and honest. They should be able to talk to you about sexual things, especially depending on what their age is. Make sure that they know what's healthy and what's not. Emphasize that anyone who pressures them to send a sexual picture is not someone they can trust. Talk to them, talk about ways an image can spread online. And I will tell you, if the image goes out, once it's taken on their phone and goes anywhere online, it is out there forever. Even though that there are resources that could remove the photograph from certain websites, it's very, very tough once it gets to a number of sites for it to ever be gone. So, and I might talk about that a little bit later. Report it to your child's school, report it to the police, especially if you know that your child is being blackmailed or a photo is being passed around. Talk about ways that the image can spread online with your child so they have a full understanding and grasp on the negative consequences. So solicitations, how are they occurring? The majority of sexual solicitations and aggressive solicitations occur among older teens, but we are seeing it on younger teens as well. Most teens are solicited by their peers or young adults in a very casual way and report not being very bothered by it, unfortunately. Many of them simply remove themselves from the situation by blocking the person who sent the inappropriate request, asking them to stop or leaving a website. And that's a fantastic thing for them to do as far as a way to avoid the solicitations that are being made. Just going over grooming. I don't want to not spend time on it, but I know I'm taking a while already. How people are grooming our children, they're exploiting them through natural curiosity. They're filling a void in their life that they essentially don't have, whether it's offering them money that they don't have, whether their parents can't offer them, whether it's providing them a relationship and trust that they don't have through their friends, family, or parents as well. And this is the manipulative process that allows these suspects to engage in illicit behavior with our kids. Signs, I talked about it. It's filling that void where they're receiving gifts. This is things that you're looking for. They're not wanting to talk to you about who they're on the phone with. They're hanging up the phone, or they're avoiding the phone when you're in the actual room. If you see any of the signs that we have listed here, don't ignore them. Talk to your children. Check out what they're doing online, who they're talking to, and get them help immediately if you suspect that something is wrong. Here in Gainesville, we have a lot of resources available to our kids, especially when it comes down to any type of therapy or anything like that that might be needed, so they can talk to someone if they're not comfortable talking with you. Again, what you can do for your kids, talk to your children about relationships, set some policies, like I said earlier, set some sort of standards for your kids. Ground rules is what the phrase that I used. And then you can also report this through the cybertipline.org or call your local law enforcement jurisdiction if your kids are being exploited or groomed online. This is from NCMEC. This is actually came in through an actual cyber tip. Offenders asking to trade. The suspect says trade. The offender saying like nudes. And the child saying, no, bye, you're gross. Keep some clothes on. They're kind of having fun with it. But the point being here is we're super proud when we see comments like these, that the kids are powerful enough and strong enough to say, no, it's not happening, no matter what. And as you can see, photos sent there, the suspect had sent an image. This is one that's in this curriculum here, but I've actually seen a very similar chat come across our desk here at this office. Again, anyone who sends inappropriate images to your child, you can make reports to your law enforcement agency in your jurisdiction, or you can make the report through cybertipline.org. Make a report if anyone sends your child photos, videos containing obscene comments or content, Anyone asks your child to send sexual images. And I specifically ask that you make a report regardless, because although your child didn't send it and it's not a big deal, maybe for your child, that person that's asking for sexual images is asking almost every other kid that they come in contact with. So yes, great job, fantastic job on your child for not sending the images, but let's try to find out if we can who that suspect is so we can stop them from asking someone else's child. Report any adult, especially that's asking to meet your child in person. All right, so bullying and technology, cyberbullying. So cyberbullying is exactly what it sounds like. It's bullying through technology like cell phones, social media. Some stats here, research tells us that about 25% of middle and high school kids have been cyberbullied. About 16% admitted to cyberbullying others. Youth who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or questioning are more likely to be involved, both as victim and a bully as well. Checking my time here. Okay, examples of cyberbullying: sending mean texts, photoshopping pictures, creating fake profiles, posting fight videos. It runs the gamut, but it's all very important. You and I didn't experience this. Most of us did not experience this as kids. We look at the picture on the left, that's an isolated incident that happened at school for most of us 20 years ago when we were in school. It was isolated. Once we left that circumstance, that situation, it was gone. Yes, we might have some lasting feelings about the situation, but it usually ended there for the most part. But unfortunately now, because of technology, things like that situation here where the kid's getting pushed, they are being recorded. They're being shared online. So the kid leaves the school, they go home, and now it's at their fingertips when they're home and they're going online. Now they're still being made fun of when they go home. Now they're still being humiliated. So differences, and this is kind of what I just talked about, the differences between cyberbullying and bullying. It often spreads faster than in-person bullying because of its instant online communication. It has a wider audience because it can easily be sent to potentially unlimited amount of people. And it follows children home from school, so they can never get away from it. All this can undermine your child's sense of security. They don't feel safe at school, and then they don't feel safe at home. And that's why this is so important. In like I said, I take a step back 10 years. I didn't view cyberbullying the same way, and I wouldn't have given it the same credit. It's just online, it's not a big deal. But it was really ignorant of me to say such a thing because I never experienced it. But now, after learning and seeing some of the cases that involve cyberbullying, I frankly feel like it's much, much worse than most of the ways that you and I had it. So suicide among cyberbullying victims is rare. Yes, it is rare. Research has looked at this and found that most teens who committed suicide were bullied at both school and online. And many of the teens had some type of mental illness, such as depression. But despite these things, they say that it is rare. Although it's rare, I can tell you that we have seen a noticeable increase in teen suicide as far as the statistics are concerned. We've seen a notable increase in teen suicide, anxiety, and depression since 2010, and it's only been exacerbated by COVID, as you guys can imagine. I don't know if I have it here in the next. Cyberbully victim bystander. I'm going to kind of jump through this here. 3 people usually involved in cyberbullying. The bystander is an important one because the bystander, they can make the difference. They can step in. They can make sure that nothing happens. They can report it. They can get that person help. So important ways that we can help with cyberbullying: support your child and help them solve problems together or solve problems with them. Consider saving the evidence if there is evidence of a cyberbullying incident. Block the cyberbullies if your child's the victim or even the bystander. They're not worth having as friends online. Set up new accounts, talk to school, and you can also make the report. Let's not think that kids will be kids, because this has a longer lasting impact, like I said, than typical bullying. How to prevent it: monitor and intervene in your child's online behavior in the same way that you would if they were offline. Establish expectations for your online behavior, their online behavior, and set consequences if they're involved as a cyberbully. And again, this is where we have to be honest with each other and ourselves here. If we're posting negative things online, are we modeling good online behavior for our kids? Probably not, right? It probably makes it seem very okay for them to post negative things about someone else online. Talk to your child about not being a bystander, establishing expectations for reporting, encouraging them to stand up for the victim when they feel like it's safe to do so. That might mean being a good friend to the victim, telling the bully to stop, or refusing to join in the cyberbullying. But it's a very important role over those three roles when it comes to cyberbullying. I do want to touch on this, and then I'll jump to the next slide here. Sorry, I know I'm running a little thin for time, but I think we're almost done. I spoke to a number of youth in Alachua County a couple months back, part of a Taking Stock in Children program. I'm sure Dr. Edwards is familiar with it. And I talked to them about teen sexting. I talked to them about cyberbullying, internet safety, sort of the gamut of concerns here that we're talking about. And I thought that the teen sexting would have been the #1 issue. And maybe it's a bad thing that it wasn't, because maybe, like I said earlier, they're desensitized to it. But the overwhelming majority of the kids that I talked to, the #1 problem was cyberbullying. And I did not anticipate that at all. Not that I didn't hold any value with it, because as I'm explaining, I do. I just anticipated that wouldn't have been what was on the forefront of their mind, and that was. So very surprising to hear. So these are our local numbers. I talked to you a little bit. We get tips from National Center for Missing and Exploited Children regarding any type of online child exploitation, concerns of child human trafficking, cyberbullying as well. These tips come into Alachua County, and then I send those reports out to they come into the Gainesville Police Department, and I send them out to all of North Florida, which includes Brevard County, up to the border in Nassau County, all the way to the Panhandle. So very large area. But you can look at our local numbers here. 4,300 cases came to the task force. 208 of those came to Gainesville, 88 to Alachua County. We fast forward to 2021. We had 218 online reports made, and then 177 in Alachua County. And that's specifically for ASO. So you can see that their case numbers last year doubled. We were seeing a lot more reports in rural areas like Alachua and High Springs. Again, we think that more kids are online. Therefore, we're seeing more kids being put at risk. Therefore, we're receiving these numbers. So we've talked to you today about several strategies to help you deal with inappropriate content, online privacy, sexting, online sexual solicitation, and cyberbullying. Most of these suggestions have been based on communicating with your children, but I also wanted to talk about technological solutions. There's the filtering and monitoring software. I'll give you some options in a couple of minutes. Bark, B-A-R-K, is one that has been recommended online and seems to have a pretty good impact. Also, if I'm not mistaken, Bark will kind of scan some of the conversations so it can identify things before a problem actually occurs. You can contact your cell phone provider, see if they offer any services. You can research options. Like I talked about earlier, there are plenty of options online in addition to what I'll end up giving the group today. We'll figure out how to give it before 7 o'clock here. All right, we're down to the last couple slides. So remember, the most important thing to do, number one lesson, like I talked about earlier, is to communicate with your children about what they're doing online. Start the conversation by asking about their interests. Asking questions like, what is your favorite app? Who are you talking to when you're playing video games? What kind of pictures do you like to post? I said I would talk about it earlier. I want to talk about it now since I just talked about the video games. We see reports coming from Roblox where kids are communicating with who they think are friends or maybe other kids online. And it turns out there's suspects on the other end of that device. They're trying to communicate with our kids and trying to exploit them online with games just like Roblox. Discord is an app that kids go on, and it was originally made for the gaming community to share comments and maybe ideas, and just it was a social networking app for gamers. It's since turned into an area where people are exchanging child sexual abuse material and where kids are being exploited online as well. So again, ask them questions about what they're doing, what they like, what kind of pictures they're posting, maybe see the photographs, see the photographs, give your opinion on it, talk about it with your kids, discuss these things with them regularly so they know when you're available, so they know that you're available and you have an open mind. Kids need to know that you won't freak out and stop them from going online if something does happen. You may not be able to protect them from everything, but you can teach them how to make responsible choices when they encounter a problem. And I think that's the goal here. I think we'd be foolish to think that our kids will never encounter a problem online. Our only goal should be that if they do, they handle it responsibly, and it's because we've taught them. And we know that the second layer to that is that they can communicate with us what that problem is. That's a huge win for any of us. This is NetSmarts. This is a program. I'll send you the links here again before we end. But this is a program that is developed for grade level kids, grade school level kids, that teaches them about online safety in a very, very unique manner. You can see the full season of videos. It says 30-minute videos. I logged onto it the other day because they've had an update with a newer season. And it's like the kids playing a game, but it teaches them sort of the safety concerns about sending inappropriate content, not sexting, as we talked about earlier, because it's more of an etiquette for kids when it comes down to it. But it's a really unique way to approach grade school level kids early. I do often get this question. I don't know if it'll end up being in the chat today, but I get the question, well, how soon should we start talking about these topics with our kids? I think at the end of the day, if they have any device that can access the internet, we should be having a conversation with them because that's where they're at risk. It's not the one that's doesn't have access, that has preloaded games that you're aware of. It's the one that accesses online that someone else can reach out to them and communicate with them with. All right, so the resources are there. What would be the best way to get these to them? Dr. Edwards.
You can So this is being recorded, and so it will be posted and shared on our sbac.edu/Parent Academy website page.
Okay.
So this resource page will always be something that parents can go back to.
Okay.
And then we also can look at it and share it with our school counselors, and as people may have questions, can we have a PDF is being asked right now. Of the resources, are you asking about a PDF or are you asking about the presentation?
Can I put this in the chat for everyone right now?
Certainly.
Okay, so I will do that. So can we have the PDF?
So
the presentation that I just reviewed, if you go to missingkids.org, NetSmart's resources, which is the second one that I just sent, there are a number of presentations that are available, especially if we have any teachers or instructors on today. You can go onto that website and they have curriculum which is very similar to this for high school, middle school, and grade school kids.
It says actually the links could not be clicked in a recorded video. You can copy and paste them though, and put them in a new browser, or copy and paste them and put them in something else on your computer, Word or another place that you have open. And again, they would still be available for you to see afterwards, and we'll see if we might be able to post them somewhere on our other pages or maybe on our student services pages and let parents know about that. So I will make sure that I send it to our school counseling supervisor so that that information is being made available. I also would like to share, there was a comment earlier made where someone had indicated that teen suicide may be rare, but it's 100% when it's the child of the parent. And that's absolutely correct. And we certainly want for everyone to know that regardless of what the numbers are, we certainly realize that just one suicide is astronomical.
There's way too many.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we read that comment and understand that. Are you at a place where you would like to be able to receive questions?
Yes, yep, I am.
Okay.
I am done. The last slide was thank you everyone, and my contact information. I'll put my contact information, at least my email, here in the chat. So if anyone had any other questions, they could feel free to contact me there. But yes, 100% agree with Annie with that comment. I think it's on there because a lot of parents play the, well, what's the real likelihood? What are we talking about here? Well, that's rare. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think you can play around when it comes to that stat, because we're talking about losing an actual life here, losing someone's kid. So, and like I go back to the listening to Amanda Todd's mother, and I couldn't even imagine. And yeah.
Agreed. So again, you guys can copy the contact information for Sergeant King. It is King CM@cityofgainesville.org. So King, C as in cat, M as in mattress, at cityofgainesville.org, or Michael as in Michael. So if there are any questions from those of you who are viewing on tonight, if you would go ahead and put those in the chat, we will give an opportunity for Chris to answer those, and then we will kind of finalize things. So we want to give you that moment to type questions if you have any. Also, as a reminder to everyone, and I guess I can put in the chat as well in case you are doing a copy and paste, what our webpage is for the Parent Academy. Not only tonight's broadcast or recording was placed there, but all of the ones that we have held thus far since we've started doing our webinars are posted on the page, because we go through a series of modules for the Parent Academy. We rotate each week on 4 different modules. So once a month, there is something in each module that is shared with parents. And once we have those recordings available, we place them on the page for you to go back to. I don't see any new questions here. And so if that is the case, I would like to just say thank you to all of our parents and community members who have engaged with us on this evening. And please check back on our pages and look for those reminders that go out through our public information office to all of our parents through Skylar. We thank you so much for joining with us tonight. Thank you, Detective Sergeant Chris King, for joining with us and sharing. You're getting thank yous from those who are on today, and we appreciate your time and all the work that you're doing. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.